Hey everybody, this is Anthony K with Sports Fluent, and I have a very special guest today, Tony Delk. You know him from the University of Kentucky, from his career in the NBA. I know him a little bit better than he knows, though. So we're gonna start with something, Tony. I know I'm surprising you with this. I don't know if you know this or not, but you kind of owe me an apology.
Uh-oh, let me hear this.
And I'm gonna tell you why. In 1994, I came to the University of Kentucky as a high school student for a basketball camp.
Okay.
You and Roderick Rhodes were my coaches. And you gave me a nickname. You called me out in front of everybody, and you gave me a nickname, and you called me Hollywood. And you said everybody at the camp was concerned with, stretching, warming up, and
Right.
Hollywood over here, me, was more concerned with his hair, with his shorts, about looking good. I don't know, maybe you wanted to impress Coach Pitino. And I laughed it off, and it was fun. And for a week, everybody called me Hollywood.
Right.
And that's okay, you would think. However, I went to university in West Virginia, and my roommate walked me around campus, and we were talking. And as we were introducing ourselves to some people, somebody pointed at me and said, "I know you." And I said, "I don't think so. I'm from Toronto. I've never spent any time in West Virginia. How would you know me?" He said, "University of Kentucky basketball camp. You're Hollywood." And from that point on, everyone called me Hollywood, which is a terrible, terrible nickname, by the way.
No, it's not, man. No, it's not, man.
But he told the story about I was more concerned with looking good than playing good, which did not help my rep.
Well, like I say, it's more about more about the flashing lights. And,
right.
You were more about, it's funny you said that too, because I do remember the name Hollywood. I was like, man, this kid is so concerned with his looks. And most kids, they just want to come to a camp and play and have fun. But you were like, no, dude, I got to look good. I said, if you look good, you play good. That's what I heard.
I took from Deion Sanders, right? If you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. That's right.
Absolutely, man. That's what's up.
So I'll give you this, though, too. I'll tell you this. So as much as I say you owe me an apology, I also owe you a thank you, because I couldn't shoot a lick before coming to that camp. And you guys made us shoot about 1,000 jumpers kind of every hour. And I went back to my senior year in high school, and I was probably the best, from maybe the worst shooter on my team to the best shooter on my team.
Right.
So I do got to thank you for that. So enough about me. Let's get to you. So obviously at the University of Kentucky, you had a ton of success. What was that like? I was around the team even for a week, and I could tell the kind of camaraderie and you guys really seemed like you were not just a team on the court, but off the court. What was that experience like?
And I think it's an experience that I'm trying to incorporate with my kids in my Tony Delk Basketball Academy here in Atlanta, is just the cohesiveness, the chemistry. You have to spend time with one another. And I think what made that team special, because, it's funny you speak about Roger Rhodes now, who was my fraternity brother, Omega Psi Phi, is, I came in with Walter McCarty, not Antoine Walker, Roger Rhodes, Jared Prickett, and Rodney Denson. We had the number one recruiting class in 1992. And all of us brought different things to the table. I was a great scorer. Rod was he could play. He was a two-way player. Jared was a big-time rebounder. Walter was a stretch forward at the time that ended up being a really good stretch forward in the NBA. And Rodney Dent was our centerpiece. He protected the rim, rebound. He had a nice little mid-range shot. So everyone bought something totally different. But it almost didn't happen for me, because after a few games after my freshman season, I was getting ready to leave Kentucky, about midway through that season. Went to Coach Pitino. I wasn't playing a lot. Our offense went through Jamal Mashburn, and coming out of high school with all the accolades, being the leading scorer in the state of Tennessee, McDonald's All-American, I expected to play right away. So after a few games, I was like, man, it's not working out for me. And then Jared was playing. Walter was a prop 48. Rodney Dent was playing. Roger was in the starting lineup. So I was the player that was left out. And when you're left out, it's, you're watching your peers play. And it's like, what have I done wrong to not, be on the court and getting some playing time? So, we went and had a discussion with him. I said, hey, I'm not happy here. I want to get my transcript. I want to leave and go somewhere else. So, we talked, And when that season ended, we ended up going to the Final Four, losing to Michigan in the Final Four. And he said, "Hey, I'm not gonna recruit anybody else at your position." And of course, players, we always hear that. We know you get to college, and that's their job to recruit players. To
Right.
bring in the next group of guys to, help lead the program. But also, that's how they keep their job, by winning. You don't keep your job by developing players and trying to get guys, that are good people. You want guys that are competitive, guys that's going to help get you to, a national championship game if possible, but help you keep winning. And when that season ended, I had to, it was a tough decision because I had schools that were coming after me, but I knew I would have to set out a year. But also, I had to mature and grow up. It was a different system. And what made it hard for me was that for the first time in my playing career, the ball didn't go through me. It went through another person. So some of that it wasn't selfishness, but what it taught me was I had to learn how to play without the ball. So playing without the ball and learning how to play better defense. Because when you're an elite scorer, especially in high school, you're not really playing a lot of defense.
Right.
So our pressing style, knowing how to guard and defend, knowing the different schemes and different coverages, I had to learn all that as a freshman. So it really helped my game and made me a two-way player because I started appreciating and enjoying playing defense. And most guys don't. If I'd have came right in and went straight to scoring, and let's say after a year I leave and then I make it to the NBA, well, the NBA has the best players in the world. So it's not always about your offense. Can you stop a person at your position? And that was the one thing Coach Pitino taught me. And I think having Billy Donovan there when I wasn't playing, Billy Donovan, I was going into the gym late nights, working on my game, watching film, breaking down film. And he was giving me the blueprint on what it's going to take to be successful at the collegiate level. But also, hey, if you ever want to make it to the next level, Tony, you got to play defense. You got to
Right.
start listening to what coach is telling you. Coach has been there. He doesn't hate you because when a coach is constantly screaming at you every day, and that's what it was. He was constantly like, every
Right.
day. He was on my ass every day. I'm like, man, why did dude recruit me? This dude
Right.
just don't like me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like somebody that you have to see every day. It's like going in and you have a boss, and that boss is on you every day from time you get there till you leave. I'm like, man, I'm looking for a new job. But I was up for the challenge, and that's the thing that he didn't know. And by the time I became a senior, he was just coaching me now. I was playing, and it wasn't so much him teaching me because everything that he had taught me, I had absorbed, and I was applying. And back to what you're saying about the chemistry that we had is that we spent so much time with each other. Having a dorm that was all about Wildcat Lodge and all about our players is that we saw each other every day. And I think when you're successful, you're doing something with people and you're getting to know each other, and then you're seeing those people every day.
Right. And that's probably something I think that's common for a lot of guys coming out of high school, right? You're the best player on your team, the ball's in your hand all the time, and now you
Right.
go to whatever university it happens to be, and you're not necessarily going to be the best player when you go from high school to college. In most cases, you're probably not, and you got to learn how to not be, I guess, the man right out the gate, which is tough. So from there, obviously, you make it to the NBA, and this is a question I've always wanted to ask you because in the NBA, you were successful. It's not like you were a bad player. Everywhere you
Right.
went, you played well. You
I
you
just had
could
a bad
you could
contract.
score. Is I was gonna say, but you moved around way more than I
Yeah.
thought because you would see these big games out of you, right? And
Yeah.
I would watch you. Obviously, I paid attention to most of the Kentucky players that came out because I had that kind of connection from that camp.
Right.
And I was like, he's playing well. He's doing why did you move around? So you said contract,
And that's the thing. As I ask myself the same thing, because like I said, it wasn't like I was a bad dude. I was a great locker room guy. It wasn't like I was hanging out, going out drinking and smoking, doing all those things. I never did that anyway. But my contract was easy to move. And as I was talking about just being successful, it's like I wanted to stay with certain organizations for more than 1 year, and when I signed my 6-year deal with Phoenix, I was like, man, after playing in Charlotte, getting traded to Golden State, playing there 2 years, I played extremely well, but I didn't want to stay there. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have a great relationship with PJ Carlesimo at the time. I was like, I don't care what y'all offer me, I'm not coming back. And PJ was, and I mean this, is an unbelievable guy off the court. it was just hard playing in the NBA for a coach that was kind of like a dictatorship, you know. And PJ, I would tell him that now. I think when I left there and went to Sacramento, I really wanted to stay in Sacramento, but Sacramento didn't have the money, but they did give me the opportunity, because when I left Golden State, I didn't have any other offers, you know, and my agent at the time, he was like, hey, Boston Celtics want you to come play in the summer league. And this is when Coach Pitino was the coach there. And, you know, that was an insult, to be honest with you. I'm like, man, listen, been in the league first of all, played for the man for 4 years.
Right.
Been in the NBA for 3 years. And you telling me that I have to go improve myself in the summer league? And I felt that was an insult. So at that time, I was like, I'm not going to Boston. I'm good. I said, I'd rather wait it out and see what happens. So we ended up signing with Sacramento. We signed a 2-year deal. Second year was a player option. And when I first got there, it was so funny. I remember Ty Corbin. You know, I was thinking, Ty was probably at that time maybe 36, 37. And I was maybe the last guy, that signed with the team. So it was 15-man roster. I'm looking at Ty Corbin. I'm thinking Ty Corbin is the assistant coach. But he was actually on the roster. I'm like, dude. So, true story. Like, I was really literally the 15th man behind who I thought was a
coach.
I thought like he was assistant coach. I'm like, man, I'm behind the assistant coach. So I'm like, oh man, like this is the worst situation ever. But my professionalism kept me in shape and ready to play. And I remember, as Coach Rick Adams was one of my favorite coaches. He's like, Tony, said, just be ready. He said, your time is going to come. He said, just stay in shape. He said, I love your game. He said, I know what you can do. But right at that time, it was Jason Williams and Derek Martin. They both were in front of me, and John Barry. So they were all in the rotation. And I never forget, there was like a game we were playing on the road in Houston, and I would always sit on the floor. I didn't want to sit on the bench. I'm just sitting on the floor. I wasn't playing. I'm like, I don't want to occupy a seat if I'm not playing. So I just take the floor, and I don't have to worry about getting up. So I'm on the floor. And we're down maybe 15, 20 points in the fourth quarter. And he was like, Tony, go in the game. And it's so fun. I hadn't heard my name called to go in the game. It felt like in weeks. I'm like, man, I'm actually going to get out there and play. But went out there and balled. And next thing you know, the next game, he started playing me a few more minutes here and there. And then I got into the rotation. And then he would play me the second and fourth quarter of every game leading into the playoff. So when we get to the playoff, we play against the Lakers. This is when the first round series was only 5 games, had to win.
Right. Yeah.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Yeah.
So they won the first 2 games in LA, and I played well both second and fourth quarter. So I was actually closing playoff game. Come back to Sacramento, played extremely well. We win both games in Sacramento. So that series finished, and I'm averaging double figures. So now a player option. So the Lakers really liked me, which I knew I wasn't Hollywood yet. I was like, you know what? Hollywood lifestyle, I'm not ready for that.
It's a lot of responsibility.
More responsibility is more distraction, to be honest.
Right. It's true enough.
There's a lot going on in LA. I'm like, dude, I'm a small town country dude. That's not gonna work for me. But I was hoping.
But Sacramento had a system that suited your game though too, right?
When I tell you, like, it reminded me of Kentucky, and I probably could have stayed there for the next 5 or 6 years, to be honest with you. But Phoenix offered me 6 years, so it was like Charlotte, Golden State, Sacramento, and I knew if I got 6 years, it would be guaranteed. There's nothing that whether I got traded along those 6 years, my money was guaranteed, and I couldn't mess around with that just to go back and say, man, let me do another year here and see what was going to happen. So I had to take the guarantee. So in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I found a home. Sacramento, I loved. I wish I could have stayed there because I like what they built over the next 4 or 5 seasons. So who came in and replaced me was Bobby Jackson. So as I'm watching Sacramento, I'm like, Bobby Jackson replaced me.
Playing your role, yeah.
Playing my role. So playing my role, and but also I really wanted to go play with Jason Kidd. At that time, I really loved Phoenix. Phoenix was a place that I got a chance to go as a senior. They had the Desert Classic, which invited all the top seniors out there to compete. And when I went out there, I was like, I fell in love with Phoenix. And when that opportunity presented itself, I'm like, man, I'm going. And long story short, we actually played Sacramento in the first round that year, and we ended up losing to them. So I'm like, I'm even more pissed. Like, man, I
Yeah.
just left here. But what happened with our team was when Jason Kidd got traded to New Jersey for Stephon, and our whole dynamic changed. You know, we went from
Right.
a playoff team to never we were out of the playoff. So that kind of got me traded to Boston, which it's funny that going back to the story I was telling you earlier was I was like, I'm not going to Boston. There's no way I'm going to Boston. It's cold. The city, you know, it was hard to maneuver and get around, and I get traded there from Phoenix.
And that's a tough one because I tell everyone this story too. When I was in high school, we went to Scottsdale and played a tournament at Chaparral. Coach Westphal had just gotten fired for Phoenix, and he was coaching his son's high school team in Scottsdale at the time. And I fell in love with Scottsdale. So I fast forward to adulthood. My first chance, I got a job in Phoenix, and I moved because I'm in Toronto. I'm dealing with the snow and
It's
all that
no
kind of stuff.
brainer, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I hear you.
It's no brainer, and it's a place that I love now. And you know, I know I've started my business here, but a place I would love to move back to. You know, two of the places I really enjoyed living was definitely Phoenix and New Mexico. New Mexico was another life changing. It was life changing at the time because I was going through some things, personal things, but nothing personal like that was really bad, just a relationship. And I kind of needed a place to go and kind of like find myself again. So it's funny that the two places I really enjoy were desert. You know, it gives you the desert life, you know.
Yeah.
But when you think about life and me moving around to all these different cities, man, it was definitely, you know, a point of, you know, in my life, I'm like, man, you know, you feel like you're not wanted, but I still always gave 100%. I gave my all. I'm like, man, I don't care where I go. I'm just because I love basketball. I'm so passionate about it that it didn't matter where I was traded. I'm like, you know, you're gonna get the best version of me that you ever gonna get of any other player. Like, so I wish the organization had given me what I gave them. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, and I never got that in return.
So after your NBA career kind of is coming to an end, you go back to my home country and you go to play for Panathinaikos.
Yeah,
I should be able to say that. I speak
yeah.
Greek.
Like you're
Um,
Greek, man. Yes, exactly.
yeah, I should be able to say that. And you have a lot of success. And so what was that like? Because I can imagine I moved from Toronto to Greece and I tried to live there and I
Hmm.
made it about a year and a bit before I came back. So how
Right.
do you go from kind of living in, now I know you're moving around a little bit in the NBA, but these American cities to Greece? Because that I speak the
It
language and I
was
found it hard. How did you
right.
find that?
You know, it was an adjustment, and what made the adjustment was I think I'm, you know, when you're so Americanized, and you know, when you go from the NBA of, you know, flying on private planes, staying in the best hotels, to now it's like, man, we got to and practice. You know, practice was something that towards the end of my career, I was like, I know how to play basketball. So, you know, I didn't do all the practicing that they want to do overseas. It's like 2-a-days. I'm like, dude, I don't want to do no 2-a-days. My legs are not equipped to be doing 2-a-days
Right.
to play 15, 20 minutes in a game. I'm like, but that's just you know, that's how the international game is, especially some of the younger guys. I'm like, listen, but you know, they couldn't treat me any different than they would a 19, 20-year-old kid. But I'm like, it should have been that way because my legs and what my knowledge of the game is totally different than an 18, 19-year-old kid. Also respect what I've done. Not to say I have to go over there because I played NBA and, you know, you have to, you know, kiss my ass or anything, but I know how to play basketball. You know, put me in position, put me on the court. I'm going to figure this game out. I've done it everywhere I've gone. So it's still basketball at the end of the day. But I think I got, you know, by the end of my stay there, and also I left my family. You know, and that was the most difficult thing was, you know, I had a young baby at the time,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was just really missing. I had a 5-year-old, then I had a 3-year-old, and then we had a, you know, I think like about an 8 or 9-month-old child. So
That's tough.
it was
Yeah.
difficult leaving my daughters and pursuing, you know, not really pursuing my career, but just, you know, furthering my career. But you know, when I left there, I knew I wasn't going back. You know, I was like, man, if this how, you know, my career is going to end, I'm probably going to just stay in the United States. And I wish I could have stayed because I had 3 or 4 more years left in my, you know, in my playing career.
Right.
And I just kind of forfeited that, you know, just to come back. And also my mom passed during that year also. So after we won the Greek championship, you know, I got a call and, you know, my niece called me and she was like, hey, you know, your mom is really sick. And I was like, you know, how sick? She was like, you need to come back now. So I kind of like just packed up as much stuff as I could, and they just thought I left because I didn't get a chance to play in the Greek league. We had already won the Euro League,
Right,
so the
right.
Greek league was coming up, and I told them, I said, man, I'm leaving. They were like, what do you mean? You have this contract, and you have. I'm like, dude, my mom is my priority. I don't
Right.
care what happens here. I'm out. I'm not coming back. So it kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth when I left there, and I said, well, you know what? If that's how my playing career is going to end, it's going to end on my terms. So I kind of like left there knowing that I could have played a few more years, but my priority in my mind was definitely with my mom.
Right, right.
Nothing would, if I had to redo it all over again, I would have definitely have come back, and I probably would taken a few months off and then probably went back to playing.
Let's I guess fast forward to now. So are you paying attention to the league? All these guys in the bubble.
And I watched that game last night, that New Jersey
They,
and Portland game. Woo! When I tell you and that last night was like the first. I would say the first night. Like I've been watching games, but in and out of games.
right.
But when I tell you, I came back last night because Dame has been killing it. You know what I'm saying, with the 51 and 61. And then I knew last night game they had to get in. You know what I'm saying? It was like I thought if they lost, they still would have a shot. But if Portland had a loss last night, they were going to be done. So it's like all that stuff that Dame had done up until this point is like, man, it wasn't worth anything.
Right.
So watching that game, and watching, I think I did a scout report on Karis LeVert when he was at Michigan, and I really liked his game. Just his athleticism and his ability to score was something that I paid attention to then. And I want to say when I came back and did some volunteer work for Atlanta Hawks, I went back and did something on Michigan, and I was like, man, this Karis LeVert kid can really get buckets. So that game last night was, I mean, if there was a mission, there were people in the stands, they would have got their money worth. But I guess the people that was watching, like myself and all the other fans of Portland and Brooklyn, we all got a really good game last night.
I found that there's been some really great games and performances, and I
Yeah.
almost wonder, like, when they talked about coming and playing in this bubble with no fans, with all those months off. I think a lot of us expected kind of some sloppy play, a bit of lack of energy, but I
No,
haven't seen that at all. In fact, some of these guys that come back look better than ever.
it's
Uh,
been phenomenal. Like I said,
yeah,
it's been the game. To me, the game didn't lose anything. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought what they did was, to me, they would have gained more fan base. Because now you're looking at it, it wasn't anything that was sloppy and nasty. You know what I'm
no,
saying, man?
not at all.
And what happens now is when you're a true fan, you get caught up in watching the game, and that's what I try to tell my young kids. I say, here's the perfect opportunity to watch basketball and not be distracted by what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because now you're not looking in the stands, you're seeing somebody. There's no halftime entertainment. You don't have the mascot, you don't have the cheerleaders. So if you are a true basketball fan, now you are watching the game, and you're watching the game between 94 feet. So that's what I try to relate to my kids. Where the game is there right now is that enjoy watching everything that's happening on the court. There's no distraction right now.
Yeah.
So what Adam Silver and the players, as well as all these organizations, is that they gave us an exciting product. They put an exciting product on the court that I really enjoy. And like I said, I've been watching different games, and all the games have been good. So it's like taking the best 20 plus teams and eliminating. I hate to say some of the bad teams, but we did get some of the bad teams out of the way. I didn't want to see them anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it left competitive basketball, which that's all you're looking for. When you buy the NBA pass, you can't watch every game, but when you can put like quality games where you have 4 or 5 teams fighting just to get into the playoff,
Yeah.
there's nothing more exciting than that. It's like the NCAA tournament. It was like, put like this, with games being played out there, it was like watching the NCAA
Yeah.
tournament all over again.
Oh, it's been great. So I'm going to put you on the spot now. So the playoffs are about to begin. The how much, I'm going to ask you this question first, and then maybe get some predictions from you. Home court advantage isn't really a thing now, and in the
No.
NBA, more so than maybe some other sports, it is. Some teams do play much better at home than on the road. So now on this even playing field, do you think we're going to see any kind of upsets, or do you still think kind of the Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, are those favorite teams still just going to make it through to the end just because they're
I'm gonna tell you, I really, you know, and we have to see what Portland
They're
and Memphis.
scary. I agree. Portland's
Yeah,
scary because Dame is balling.
I
Yeah.
really think so. I, I think they present a problem to the Lakers. I don't think the Lake. I mean, I can see the Lakers still winning the series. Don't get me wrong, because I think there's no matchup for LeBron, and when there's no matchup for LeBron, he is dominated. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter if there's Dame or if there's CJ. It doesn't matter about those guys. Is that you almost have to have someone who could match up personally with him.
Right.
And the times that he's lost championship games, they've had somebody to match up with him. You know, you got to go back. I think the only series where it was kind of tricky, and I think it was a first year was when they lost to Dallas, and
Right.
when they got swept by San Antonio. I mean, it was basically LeBron by himself. He
Right.
had no,
Yeah.
you know, even I mean, first of all, they should have made it to the final that year, but they did. But
Yeah.
you know, and they got swept out. But I think every other time he's lost, it's been somebody who could guard him and contain him
Right.
and put pressure on him. So even when they beat San Antonio the one year when Ray Allen hit the three in the corner, San Antonio should have won it that year. Like
Right.
they were up 3-2, and if he don't make that shot, San Antonio wins that series. And I don't know what would have happened the next year. I think Miami probably would have won the next year because they would have been hungry. So when San Antonio lost that series to Miami, they wanted to get back because they know they should have won that series. So I knew if San Antonio get back to the finals against Miami, I knew San Antonio was going to win that series. Now, Golden State, let's fast forward to Golden State, is that when they brought in KD, that was also someone that was a problem for LeBron because
Right.
now you got to guard the second best player in the world, and he
Right.
played your position, and he wasn't going to back down either.
Yeah.
But when
But
you don't have
even in the series that LeBron won, you saw if there was kind of athletic, if they had length and gave him
yes,
troubles, right? He didn't perform as well. Now,
right,
obviously, the bar on LeBron is a little bit higher, but you
it
could
is
see
different.
that. But you could still see those teams that have that player for sure would make it harder. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it definitely gives him a problem because even when they, you know, when I think when Toronto was like the number one team and you know, and he was in the East in Cleveland, like I wasn't it was they didn't scare me. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't like Cleveland wasn't scared because it was like, okay, cool. You know what? Y'all don't have anybody that can guard me. And same thing when Atlanta was the number one team in the East, and you know they didn't have anyone that can guard him at that position. So it's like unless you can get someone to guard him at his position or put pressure on him, is that you're not going to beat LeBron. So even with Portland playing as well as they have played, having the big bodies to guard Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard. They have mobile bigs as well,
Right.
but they still don't have anyone that can guard that man in his position. And he presents a problem and has presented a problem in his 17 years of play in any series because you can't guard him.
All right. So now I put you on the spot. You got to we'll make it easy. Any upsets you're thinking in the first round?
I don't think there will be any upsets in the first
Okay.
round. I tell you what, it depends on if there is a healthy Westbrook, and I don't know who Houston's going to play, but you
It's looking
still
like
need.
it's going to be OKC. So that's the only one. So I did my predictions yesterday based
Right.
on the assumption that Portland's getting in. So maybe it was a little premature, but I have OKC and Houston going 7. There's something about OKC and Chris Paul. I think he still
Right.
wants to prove he's an elite point
Of
guard.
course.
Yeah,
And especially how they got rid of him. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
it's like Westbrook to Houston from OKC and CP3 to OKC from Houston. It's like, you do have something to prove. It's like
Yeah,
when I got traded the first time from Charlotte to Golden State, I couldn't wait to play. I couldn't wait to play Charlotte. It
right,
was personal. You know what I'm saying? It was
for
like
sure.
Muggsy Bogues and I got traded, and I was like for David West. I was like, okay, cool. I can't wait for y'all. Like it's like when they said circle that game on the schedule. Like I circled that game. I'm like, they coming in town. I'm getting my rest. I'm getting up the next morning. Like I'm gonna give y'all the business. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, I
So
hear you.
those
I
first,
actually picked. I think I'm going out on a limb, but I actually picked OKC to win, but only because during that time when that trade happened, it was okay. Chris Paul's going to OKC, but they're going to move him, right? They don't even want him there. They're going
yeah.
to move
We
him,
all thought.
and
I
yeah,
think
start a rebuild.
we all
And
thought that. I think we all thought they were just gonna buy him out of his contract. He was gonna move on to another contender, and I just didn't see him, staying with them. But here's the thing too: is that you can't really teach experience. And the one thing Chris CP3 has is experience, and also he's a dog. I mean that dude wants to win. When you have a player like that, now just surrounding him with the right guys, and also him being a good locker room guy, and he can bring some guys along because you still got to have a leader, as they say in your clubhouse. You
Yeah,
have to have a
yeah.
leader in the locker room, and that's something that he's always been. And even as I'm bringing my academy along, I'm really trying to find a secure point guard for for all my teams, and I need those guys to be vocal, but also you got to lead by example. You got to be the hardest working guy. You got to come early. You got to stay a little bit late. You got to ask questions. You got to be vocal. There's so many responsibilities, and Chris Paul is a perfect guy for all those responsibilities.
Finals pick. Have you made it that far yet?
Yeah, I still think Milwaukee's going to come out the East.
You get a lot of boos from my people here in Toronto.
I know, man.
But
But
no,
what I'm
they're
saying? I'm
tough.
gonna tell you what, I do respect Toronto. Toronto is a problem, and they're a problem because of their toughness. They play defense. They know who they are. You don't have a bunch of role players in this bubble, or let's say even in the regular season, trying to find out who they are. This team knows exactly who they are, with or without Kawhi. It
Right.
still is a competitive team, and I see Milwaukee and Toronto in the finals. I think Milwaukee edged them out. The
Okay.
Lakers and the Clippers, and I think I'm gonna pick the Clippers.
The
I'm gonna pick the Clippers.
I think you and I might be the only two who are picking the Clippers. I think the Clippers, if they can figure out, I feel like there's a lack of chemistry sometimes with them. But I think
Chemistry is not good there.
if they can figure it out, they're probably the best, deepest team defensively and offensively, right?
But sometimes you can add too many pieces, and I
Yeah.
think they've added too many pieces to a puzzle, and that's where Doc Rivers got to figure out, man. Like, so I thought these 8 games should have been by the 7th and 8th game. He should have had a rotation down, but when Lemon Pepper Lou, of course, left the bubble and he
Right.
came back, that throws the rotation off.
Yeah.
Montrezl Harrell hasn't been in the rotation, so other guys have been getting their minutes.
Right.
So now those guys are, guess what? They're expecting to play. So
Right.
now from a roster being 8 guys, now you got 10, 11 players. 3 other guys that, hey, we've been here, we've done everything right. We didn't leave the bubble. So why are you going to penalize us? And
Right.
I think his job is probably the toughest job of any coach because of that of those guys who were playing before Lou came back and Montrez came back. Those guys are expected to be in the rotation. So now, how are you going to tell those guys that, hey, you know what, guys, these are my main guys, which we all know. When you have a 1-2 punch like Lou and Montrez off the bench, listen, man, these dudes, we know what they can do. Some of you guys have been starters. Like to me, like a Reggie Jackson is someone who is still trying to fit him in, but it's like, okay, he's taking some minutes away from Lou. You bring Morris over, he's taking some minutes away from Montrez, and Joakim Noah's not probably going to be in the rotation. He's going to be
Right.
comfortable. He's going to be comfortable. He's going to have a comfortable seat on the bench. But
Yeah.
the other guys, they're expecting to play.
Yeah. So let's end it on this. So you mentioned your basketball academy. I know that you're doing some work with some wine.
Yes.
Tell me about what you're doing now.
Well, we have a wine called it's Lorenzo Reserve, and you can buy it wildsidewinery.com. You can go and check out. I have a cab that's aged 1 year in Blanton Bourbon Barrel, with bourbon is so huge in Kentucky. I have a Riesling, and I have a Chardonnay. So something we started about 2.5, 3 years ago, my lady Nicole and I, and we're giving 15% of our profits back to Kentucky Children's Hospital. So
Oh,
it's for a
fantastic.
good cause. And if your listeners and yourself, if you like wine, I don't know if you like Riesling, Chardonnay, whatever your palate,
I'm sure we'll find something.
gotta find something, man. But just know wildsidewinery.com is called Lorenzo Reserve, and you can go there and just know when you buy our wine, 15% of our profits are going back to Kentucky Children's Hospital. So I'm excited about really adding on and building that brand even more, because I have to take a few trips back to Kentucky, meet with the winery owners and kind of discuss our business plan going forward. And also my Tony Delk Basketball Academy. You can go to tonydelk.com and kind of see what my teams are doing. My academy is more about teaching and developing kids, but also bringing them into a great organization, an organization that's going to be well coached and you're probably going to see me there every other day. It's like, this is my life. This is what I love. And I'm
You know what? I'm following you guys on Instagram, so I see all the stuff you're doing. I do always see you there in the gym working with the guys. So it's
yeah,
great
I probably spend too much time, man. I gotta get out there. I have to get out of the gym before I lose my relationship, you know. So,
Right.
but you know this before we leave. You build a business, you have to be there, and you have to be visible. And people are seeing me. And I know it's been a tough year for us dealing with this pandemic. But you know, I want to thank all my parents and kids that stayed with me.
All right, Tony, definitely appreciate your time. Thanks for the nickname.
Good.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, man.